Counting the.
cost of being a software developer.
Wow. So why did you become a software developer?
So, software development is not something that I was very aware of when I was in school or before college. And I didn't have any aspirations to be a software developer, but everything changed when I took a class in college that was called Introduction to Computer Science. I just really thought it was really fascinating how people could talk to machines using computer programming, and I just really liked it, and it kind of went along with some of my interests that I had prior to college. For example, I've always really liked math and science, and I just never knew how I would apply that to my job um, growing up. So software development had a lot of math and science, so that's something I liked. But also, I really liked learning languages um, growing up. So as you know, I studied Korean for a little bit and Spanish. And what I really liked about software development is that it's kind of like writing a language for computers. So it's just something that I was really fascinated by, and also just the amount of different things you can do with software. It was really intriguing. You can make apps, you can make games, websites, and a lot of other different things. So I really like that aspect of it as well.
Well, that's very interesting because you used the expression of talking to machines. So, and you said developing languages, kind sort of languages that can transfer information or cues so that the machines or computers can operate. So, can you expound a little bit more on that? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So um, as a software developer, we have this concept called coding. So it's something called computer code, and there's actually a lot of different languages that you can write software in. So there's Python, there's Java, C. So these are all just different languages that you can write computer programs in. So what it is basically is a set of instructions. So a computer has to have really exact instructions to do what it needs to do. So you kind of have to know the language to write instructions. So it can be like um, open a window, like you tell the computer to open a window, or you tell the computer to calculate some operations or some math problems, stuff like that. You just tell the computer to do that in a specific order, and and that's basically how it knows how to render different things on your phone or on your computer. And you can even to a certain degree teach the computer how to make different decisions. So whether it be like um, you know showing a different email or a different picture based on what you tell it to do, you can do all of that using computer code.
Wow. So, I guess coding is the language the computer and software developers use to get the computer to do whatever you want them to do, right?
Right, exactly.
Because I've heard the term coding and a bunch of children learning, and I wasn't sure what that was.
Mhm.
So why do you think coding is becoming more popular and even children are learning these days?
That's a good question. So, like I mentioned, I didn't learn about coding until I was like 18, but it's amazing how early kids are learning how to code, even as early as I think 6 years old.
Wow.
And I think the reason is that it's a very different way of thinking, and you have to think very logically, and you have to think like the computer. So the earlier they learn how to think like that, the more easily they can write computer code. Um, and as you can imagine, a lot of what we do now is on the computer, especially since last year with the COVID-19 pandemic. Um, a lot of the things we do every day are through our phone or through apps, and there's just a really big need for computer developers or software developers to write these new programs and to really keep the world going around. So I think they're just investing in the next generation of the workforce.
Wow. So because people are using more internet and computers and phones and social medias, everything happens on a cyberspace. So
Mhm.
the emphasis is getting bigger and bigger on that. So, what kind of software are you developing?
Okay, so yeah, right now I work for a telecommunications company in the United States. It's called AT&T.
Okay.
So it's actually American's telephone um, company. I forgot the acronym, but so I work on an application that technicians use to install cable internet. So when your internet goes out and when you have to call the technician, they'll use the app that I work on to switch out the cables and do inventory and stuff like that. So it's really it's used widespread across the country, um, and it has a few, I think maybe 100 developers working on it. So it's it's been pretty cool. And then before that, I've worked on some chatbots, which are like those robot people you talk to when you're trying to um, when you're texting with the machine. Yeah,
Oh, I have used that when I was reporting tax recently, and it was
yeah.
very convenient. I didn't have to
Hmm.
call anybody. It gave me exactly what I wanted. I didn't have to go to Naver, Google. I don't have to sort through junk. Just gave me exactly what I needed.
Yeah, yeah. So you can talk to them just like people now. The interesting thing is trying to like get the human language into something that the machine will understand. So that's where the developer would come in.
Well, how is it possible for a machine to learn, as you said earlier?
That's a really good question, and that kind of goes into a really up and coming field called artificial intelligence, which is the idea that machines can learn and kind of improve over time. So, like I mentioned earlier, usually when you code, you have to give the computer exact instructions. So that's kind of set in stone. But with artificial intelligence, you kind of just give the computer a bunch of information, and then you tell them like if they're on the right track, and then it will learn to kind of make associations with different speech patterns. So um, that's kind of like the same technology you see in the movies with the robots becoming like people and talking and taking over sometimes. So
Uh,
we're very far away from robots taking over, but it's the same idea.
yeah, I think it's pretty dangerous because when I was on what is it called? Cruise mode, I began to feel like I was losing control over the automobile I was driving, and I didn't
Mm,
feel good. I felt like I was sleeping somehow. My brain was there, but I didn't feel like I was engaged. So, and I recently
mhm.
heard the Tesla cars like malfunction, then people died. So I think it's very dangerous to even let the machine just carry you over without you properly
Hmm.
monitoring, right?
Right. There are definitely risks to the technology, and that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out is how much risk is worth it. But I will say that we do benefit a lot from artificial intelligence. Um, for example, when you're on YouTube, it'll tell you what kind of videos you'll like
That's true.
and
That's true.
recommend you different things. Or on Amazon, it'll tell you some other things that you might be interested in. So um, depending on how you look at it, that can be a good or bad thing. But
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah. So AT&T and the chat box are the two things that you have worked on. So the AT&T thing, the technicians that set up the facilities to set up internet, you they operate on the system that you and about 100 people are working on. So AT&T is equivalent to SK and LG, the phone companies in Korea.
yes, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Oh, okay. So AT&T and then Verizon.
Right, Verizon and T-Mobile. Well, yeah, T-Mobile, which currently bought Sprint. So there's about three major companies now.
Oh, I see. So, when you develop a software, do you work with other team members and you share ideas with them, or is it something completely independent, or you're focusing on just one area?
That's a good question. So I would say that maybe about 30 or 40% of my job is collaboration with other developers and also other members of the team who have different specialties. So kind of how it works is we have a client who who wants something out of the product. So they'll tell us they want the app to do this at this time under these circumstances, and then they will tell that to the project manager, and then the project manager will talk to the designers and tell them exactly how they want the app to look based on the client's instructions, and then the designers will talk to the developers who will are the ones who will take the designs and actually write the code to make it come to reality, basically.
Wow.
So um, so as developers, we work together. We might work on like one file like separately, and then we'll put it together and test it. That's usually what most of the time spent is on is testing and debugging, which is basically fixing it. And then we come back together and talk about how we can change it to make it better or to fix our problems. And eventually the code gets approved and then it's shipped into the final product.
Wow. So you guys are sort of like engineers that make things happen.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why a lot of people refer to software developers as software engineers
Oh,
because it goes through a lot of the same engineering process, like research, um, planning, development, and delivery.
so how much creative can you be? Because in considering the fixed number of programs that you guys are using, so
Mhm.
in like do you come up with a new program or do you come up with a new way to make things happen? How much are you having control over what you're creating?
That's a great question. So as you can imagine, it's software code is very exact. So you do have to write things in a certain way. But I would say the creativity comes in how you accomplish the task of getting the computer to do what you want it to do. So you can everyone writes code differently. Like everyone has a different style. So some people like to use more code, some people like to use less code, some people like to um, use different words to describe the code. So you can really have a lot of creative agency in that. Um, and you can also be creative in what technology that you use. So code is very collaborative, like within the company, but also within the whole community. So, for example, like for the code that I work on, it's not all code written by AT&T. There's also code written by third-party companies where the and AT&T will download their code and put it into our software. So you can be creative in choosing which other company's code you use and kind of putting it together to make the final product. So there's just a lot of decisions that people have to make, and usually they're made based on their experience and based on a collaborative process where we try to make the best decision for the application.
Oh, I see. So there are tons of options you have to choose from.
Right.
Tons of technologies and programs and other people that can what is it called? Like you can outsource things from other people and then instead of doing everything on your own, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the idea, to try to do as least work as possible.
And you know, when you watch movies, even though I don't really watch these days anymore, um, there are like gurus that are young and that are like fixing problems at FBI's and the White House and the Vatican's. All these people are incapable of fixing, and all these kids are like so smart. They just somehow can hack into different things and they didn't even go to school and they got kicked out of school and they're making all kinds of crazy things. You're a technology person. Is that even like possible?
That's that's funny because I remember when I grew up, I would see like the kid in the basement, behind the scenes, like turning lights off and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. But I will say a really interesting thing about this field is that there's people of so many different backgrounds. Um, for example, I went to college. I did a computer science degree, so I have a very formal education. But for example, another example is my roommate who he didn't go to college, but he did a coding boot camp, and he's also a software developer. And then I know people who just started coding when they were 12 or when they were really young, and they also got into that same career without any formal education. So I think the amazing thing about software development is that really all you need is a computer. You don't need any tools, like at least physical tools, and you can really learn in your home. So it's very accessible to a lot of different people, as opposed to some other fields like engineering, where you need to actually have access to the labs and the tools and other things like that. Um, and it's very much based on what you create. So people create things and they share it online, and then that's kind of how they get recognition, or they get, um, I guess, experience and yeah, recognition in the industry.
Wow. So I guess it's technically impossible to get there without formal education. So what is the ratio like from your observation?
Hmm, that's a good question. So I have a coworker who's he went to college, and but he didn't study computer science. Um, I would say maybe 20 to 30% of people in software development now are they didn't study computer science, and maybe 5 to 10% didn't go to college or didn't finish college.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say that because even the top tech companies like Facebook and Google, they won't even they won't even disqualify you if you didn't go to college. So it's very different. Yeah, very
Wow.
different qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, all these people that started their own companies, some of them were college dropouts because for them
Mm-hmm.
they didn't appreciate all the lectures and all of them. So, what would you say the pros and cons of getting a formal education from your own experience?
So definitely one pro is understanding the fundamentals of, of computer science, and you can definitely learn on your own, but it's not as much of a it's not really drilled into your brain as much as if you went to school and took all these classes. Um, there's a lot of things that you can do with a basic knowledge of programming and computer programming languages, and you can build a lot of different things. But when you get to more um, architecture and more like um, high level things where you have to make big decisions about the app and how it'll be run in a bigger or like a more corporate environment, those are that's when that fundamental knowledge is a little bit more useful. Um, and then with formal education, there's a lot of opportunities through your school to find internships, which is a really good thing for when you're first starting out. So definitely the connections that you make in school, that's a good a pro for sure. The cons is that you don't really get to work on what you want to work on until later. You kind of have to follow the curriculum. You have to take the the same classes as everyone else, and sometimes you're just not that interested in what you're working on. I know as a teacher that probably pains you to say there's no people don't like curriculum, but um, yeah, I would say those are the main pros and cons. One's a little bit more structured, which is good for learning fundamentals, but also a little bit um, less free to do your own thing.
Oh, so if you were to have a child that would like to be a self-developer like you, when you have your own child in the future, what would you recommend to your son or daughter? Would you have them go through formal education, or would you tell them, hey, just learn from your daddy and just go ahead and jump into the real world?
That's a yeah, that's a good one. I would say I think it's going to be so different, like in the future, um, especially with kids learning coding at such a young age. I would say that coding is going to be just like reading and writing English in a few years. So I think if I were to tell my daughter like what she would study or what she should study, I would say study something that you're interested in, so that you can be like a expert in that field, and then use your coding skills to kind of give you a boost in what you're doing. So um, I think learning about a specific industry, whether it be in science or business, I think that's really good knowledge to have. And then you can write software for those industries um, with the knowledge that you have.
Wow, that's very interesting because I'm planning on homeschooling my own child in the future, and you said coding is going to be so common that it's going to be as available as just writing and reading books. So for someone like me, because I shun computers because my eyes hurt and I don't want to keep putting artificial the water thing. And the eye doctor told me to keep coming back to him, and I said nope, I'm not coming back to you. I never went back to him, and I decided not to look at the screen as much. And then I'm not using any of those. So I'm using the blue light filter thing, and I try to just listen, not instead of just watching anything. So how ubiquitous do you think it's going to end up becoming?
The like coding like
Yeah,
skill.
Coding skill.
Um, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be very natural and yeah. So like I'm actually really surprised at how many coding applications are used in a lot of these new devices. For example, you know about Alexa, like the Echo, Amazon Echo, like the smart assistant, where you can talk to it and it tells you like different things, like the weather. Um, well, there's like these, and I don't know if you guys have them over there, but there's like these things called Amazon Echo and Alexa and Siri.
Ah,
Yeah, smart assistants.
Uh-huh.
Like you can actually write your own programs in the app, and you can tell Alexa to do like different things. And it's yeah, and it's not for software developers; it's for like everyday people. So um, I think it's going to be very ubiquitous, but maybe not in the same way as how I would code, but some in a format like where you can drag and drop different things and make it a little bit more user friendly for people to create their own software. Um, but only time will tell. But I really do think, especially since there's a lot more fun ways to code. Um, for example, I was volunteering at a high school a few years ago, and they were learning how to code with music. So they were putting different beats together and using computer programming to make different songs, and they really did really well. So I can see it being in a lot of different creative outputs.
Wow. So you know what? I've thought about a way to communicate to other cars when you drive because sometimes, let's say, hey, my wife is about to give birth to a child, and I'm driving like a madman. But other people don't know, right? Well, the only thing I can do is to blinking the light, warning sign.
Yeah.
I think that's just way too rigid, way to communicate. And I was wondering why in the world there are no screens or some sort of ways for cars to communicate with each other to make things smoother, and it's just a thought.
Yeah, you're onto something. I never really thought of that. But I think that would definitely be a thing with self-driving car when those come out. Um, and that's another field. The Internet of Things is what they call when all the devices will talk to each other. So that's almost a reality. Um, like you can have a Amazon toaster, or you talk to Amazon Echo and it toasts your food or the lights. My brother has the plug where you can tell her to turn off your lights and stuff like that. So that's another thing coming. But I think the main concern with that is privacy.
Oh, I see.
You know, when when all these when all these electronics can talk to each other and they can monitor you.
Uh,
Yeah, but I really like that idea of sending a message to the car like, don't cut
yeah.
me off.
Yeah, I think even if it's not a message, I think if there's a like some sort of like signboard on the car, I can see what's going on at least if they're at a critical condition or when they need to go somewhere urgently. I think it will be very helpful. But if everybody lies and say, yeah, my mom is about to die, and they drive like a crazy
Mm-hmm.
person, can be legal issues. So it can be very very complicated, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, a few bugs to work out.
Wow. So another question is about school, MIT. So what does it stand for?
MIT. Well, it's Michigan Institute of Technology, but I actually went to Georgia Tech.
I went to Georgia Tech, not MIT.
Yeah, the MIT of the South. That's what they call it.
Oh, Georgia Tech.
But
Okay.
yeah, I went to Georgia Tech. So um, yeah, Georgia Tech is a pretty good experience. It's one of those schools like MIT where I would say 95% of the students are engineering or some kind of science.
Mm.
So um, it was a very interesting experience being around um, only that group of people for the most part.
Are they different from regular non-techie people?
Yeah, I would say so. Um, most of the conversations were about homework and about different tech coming out and new technology. Um, they weren't the most outgoing people for the most part, very to themselves. But I I think it was interesting to say the least, and I think that they're really nice, genuinely nice people for the most part. Just shy and smart, but yeah, I liked it. You could be a nerd and you would still be cool. So
So when years work together, do you encounter some challenges that outgrow as a result of being shy or are not used to group oriented?
um, so yeah, so as a software developer, I think it's a really good job for introverts because you can do a lot of work on your own. So I didn't really have a problem, and I'm not that averse to interacting with people, but I would say that as a shy person, sometimes it can be challenging to speak up in meetings when you want to contribute to something, or when you want to complain about something. So that's always a challenge, but I will say it is pretty comfortable um, working in that environment because most other people will be like you, kind of shy.
You know, I've seen a lecture where the speaker was saying being outgoing has been overvalued. That people think introverts are the problems of the group, but there are many introverts that have to keep the world going. So,
Mhm.
like outgoing people may like color everything um, in a way that really disadvantage shy people. I think it can be a myth.
Oh yeah, for sure. and we need them in all working environments.
You know, if there are only outgoing people, nothing will get done. There will be only talking.
Right, exactly.
There will be people just making friends.
Yeah, nothing will get done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what kind of child were you when you were growing up? Did you grow up reading a lot, or?
Yeah, so I always like to read books. Um, I was a pretty shy child too. Um, I was a twin. Well, I am a twin. So I when I was younger, I really just talked to my brother until I went to school and started to interact with other kids. But I was always kind of shy. I like to play video games and listen to music, and I didn't play a lot of sports until later. But I always liked to ask questions. I was very curious, and I think that kind of led me to um, liking some of the sciences in that field. So um, so yeah, that's kind of like how I grew up, and I always wanted to know why things were the way they were, and um, yeah,
Wow, so you're an avid reader that is always curious about how things work.
right, yeah. And my parents made sure I read a lot of books. Every summer we had reading lists, and um, we had to write book reports.
That sounds like Ben
And
Carson. Are your parents? What do your parents do?
oh, so my dad is an engineer. He's a
Okay.
mechanical engineer. Yeah. So that's where I got some of the math stuff from.
Okay.
And my mom is a international students counselor.
Oh.
So
Okay.
she helps like students get their visas and process their paperwork for international student admissions, and helps them get acclimated to um, life in the U.S. So
Wow. I guess that's where
um,
your learning Korean and Spanish come from.
right, yeah, that's where I got my love for different cultures.
I noticed that not everybody in America are open to other cultures. So, you've seen Asian hate and like yeah, China
Mm,
virus, all these things. What went through your mind when you were in the middle of it in your country when people
mm,
are expressing hate and Trump like saying stuff and how were you feeling?
mm. Yeah, um, that was that was upsetting to see. I do remember when Trump, our former president, talked about the Muslim ban, and I think that was really hurtful for a lot of my friends who are Muslim, and just kind of perpetuating stereotypes that apparently a lot of people were thinking, but they didn't have the courage to say it out loud until recently. So um, I think it really made me try to be more empathetic and to really be more supportive of people who might not feel welcome, you know. And even more recently with the Asian hate movement, I guess, or the recent events, it really made me um, concerned for my friends who are from different countries and made me more aware of the things that they experience on a day-to-day basis. Um, there was actually a shooting at a Korean sauna in Atlanta. I'm sure you heard of it. And one of the students from my school, their mother passed away. So it was I didn't know him personally, but it's still very close to home, things like that. So it's very important to speak up and be an ally whenever you can.
I'm used to thinking of a world where things are going to be controlled globally as it happened in the Dark Ages for more than 10 centuries, and we're talking about a world that are highly connected, highly controlled, highly coded. So, what do you think as a software developer can do to empower people with the technology instead of enslaving people to it?
I really like that question. And I think it takes a lot of people to think like that to actually make a change. There are a lot of industries in software, and the ones that make the most money are more of those that enslave people, I would say. And I think the way to kind of flip the tables or turn the tables is to give people more autonomy and allow them to make their own choices instead of trying to make choices for them. And I think that comes from empowering people with information. So I do think that we should teach more mental health and how to use technology in a healthy way and to have boundaries for technology and teach computer literacy and tell people, that their information is being used for different things and how to protect their information. And just tell them how to make the technology work for them and not have the technology take control. So I think that comes through education and helping people understand how it works, really to a certain degree, but also how it can have its negative effects as well as positive effects.
I guess with ignorance, you lose a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So what's your plan for the future as a developer, software developer?
Yeah. So thankfully, there's a lot of different options as a software developer. Recently, I've been more interested in artificial intelligence and in data. So I think that's going to be my next step as far as what I want to focus on. So I'm interested in kind of like what you mentioned, make getting into like ethics and how data can be used to empower people. And I want to learn more about machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I'm still debating on whether to go back to school to get my master's. But if that happens, then I'll definitely specialize in that field. And there's also different things like management. I might become a software developer manager to kind of work more with people. But ultimately, I do want to get into more data science and using artificial intelligence to help empower people.
Wow, sounds great. I have a last question. How do you manage with your eye health?
Yeah, that's really important. I haven't gotten those blue filter glasses yet, but that's something I'm looking into. But personally, I take breaks. There's a technique called Pomodoro technique. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but essentially it's when you set a timer for 25 minutes, and then you kind of work for 25 minutes, and then 5 minutes you take a break, and you kind of alternate. So I try to do that as often as possible, and then after I work for a while, I look at something really far away. So I open the window and look at something really far away, and that helps exercise your eye muscles because we have two muscles, like one for near sight and one for far sight.
Uh-huh.
So when you're on a computer, you're always using your nearsighted muscles. So it's good to mix it up.
Oh. So you literally set the alarm every 25 minutes? All day long?
Yeah. When I remember, yeah, I do try to do that. Or sometimes I do it for longer, like maybe 45 minutes if I'm working on something. But yeah, short periods.
So you feel more refreshed?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm glad I came across that.
Where'd you get that from?
Probably YouTube, ironically.
Actually, YouTube. I prefer the YouTube the most out of all because I can actually see what's going on and I can hear people talk.
Yeah.
So I'm a very just touchy and just social person.
Mm.
So I mean, I love reading, but other than reading the Bible in the morning, I don't know. Somehow I don't wanna just sit anymore. I just wanna listen, or I just wanna listen, pretty much, because of my eyes.
Right. And move around and
Yeah, I bike and listen. Yeah, walk and listen, and hike and listen, and inline skate and listen. So yeah, that's what I do.
yeah, it's good to get up. I actually have a standing desk, so that's
Oh, really?
another way yeah.
Oh,
So that's one way I try to take care of my health while I'm working.
wow, that's awesome. Wow. Well, it's really nice to talk to you in 5 years, right?
Yeah, it's been about 5 years.
Wow, your letter is still there in front of the toilet.
Oh man, I'm glad to hear it.
People always read it, probably sitting there. Whoever comes here.
It's your legacy.
Yeah. So,
Or my legacy.
because I used to think that letters didn't mean much, but I guess as I got older, I'm cherishing more and more. My two siblings, two brothers wrote letters for the Teacher's Day, which was last Saturday, and they even came to church with their mom to express their gratitude. And then
so nice.
and I laminated it and I put it somewhere, so it means a lot.
Yeah, I think no matter how advanced we get with messaging and emails, I think there's nothing like a nice letter.
Yeah. And I also like catching up with people through interview like this.
Yeah, we gotta do it more often. Well, not an interview, but
yeah,
catch up.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, I can call you again, and if you don't mind, I may interview in the future after you launch into something new or go somewhere else or something.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be down.
Wow. Thank you for working out your time for this interview. I'm very thankful.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Hopefully I can visit or I can catch up with you in the near future. Probably I'll call you back in a few years or sometime.
Let's not make it that long. Let's not make it that long. But yeah, I'm excited to catch up again, and we'll have more to talk about. Who knows what's gonna happen in 6 months?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a few months or in a few years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Julian. It was a great privilege to meet you in Korea. It's amazing that we can catch up again in half a decade.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was really good catching up with you too.
Yeah. I hope you have a good evening and stay healthy until I see you again.
Okay. Yeah, same to you.
Yeah.
You guys take care. Say bye to Lily for me.
Sure. Bye-bye.
All right.